desire to get into beekeeping. So the first thing we need to do to become a beekeeper is to have a place for our bees to live. And what I've decided on is to build a top bar hive. And let me show you a picture that would represent, not the one I built, but just the typical design. So this is something that can be built by most guys with just basic tools, and I'm going to give a quick material list. This will be a multiple part video, and I'll make sure that I'm detailed enough so you can follow along and build it yourself. It's very simple. So what we're going to start with is the box, and then in part 2 we'll do the frames and the legs. So what you're going to need to start off with is you're going to need a 1x12. You can get this from Home Depot, and I've just got this piece here, which is made out of pine, ponderosa pine. Pine is good, hemlock, western red cedar, whatever you can find. And it's not going to be exactly 1x12. It's going to be, we got here 11 1/4. That's fine enough. That's fine. That's what we're working with. We're going to need a piece of 1x6, at least 36 inches long. Also in pine is fine. And then we're going to need, for our dividers, we're going to need a sheet of plywood or something equivalent that's about, let's see, 32 inches long by 11 inches deep. So I've got this scrap of AC plywood. You can laminate some smaller pieces together, whatever you want. But these are the 3 things that is all we really need to get started. So let's get into it. So where we're going to start is with our 2 dividers. What that's going to do is that's going to give us the basic angle and framework for the frame, and also give us some flexibility with the hive. So if we start with a couple frames and the bees continue to grow, we can move these out and add additional frames. So the shape of this is essentially the trapezoid. It's going to be like this. The size of wood that you need to start with either needs to be about 1/2 inch or 3/4. I'm just using a piece of AC plywood, and it needs to be 11 inches exactly, and no less than let's say 30 1/2. So where we're going to start is off of this corner. We're going to measure 15 inches. Then we're going to measure the middle at 7 1/2. Take your framing square and put a line at the 7 1/2 mark right down the middle. From this line, we're going to come 2 1/2 each side. Now take your straight edge and connect the outside corner with a 2 1/2 mark on the bottom. And we're going to connect these with a line. This is going to determine the angle of our hive. Do it on both sides. And we'll come out here and connect to our 15-inch mark. Repeat this process because we're going to need 2 of these. So with our layout complete, we'll take our skill saw and cut out our 2 pieces. So now with our 2 ends cut, just check them. They should be a mirror image of each other. We're going to put our top bar, our top piece on here. Now this, one critical dimension on this whole thing is the width of these top bars. This is just cut out of regular, just 1x pine, so that'll be 3/4 inches thick. So we don't have to fool with that. However, the width of these, as they stack together, are critical. And people that have been raising bees and know bees a lot better than I do have determined that this is about the ideal width, which is somewhere between 1¼ inch and 1 3/8. I wasn't sure which way to go, so I split the difference and went inch and 15/16 width. Apparently that's very, very important, so make sure that you adhere to that. So 3/4 inch thick by 1 5/16 I went with, and then overall length is 17 inches. So what that gives us is an overhang of 1 inch on each side. So what we want to do is we want to center this on here. We should have 1 inch overhang on each side, equal reveal on on the opposite sides, and then we'll go ahead and glue this, clamp it, put a couple screws in it, and then continue on. So I'm going to be using these 1 1/4 inch deck screws. These are made for outdoors, exterior, so they'll work fine in here. I'll pre-drill this and countersink it. You're going to be looking at it the rest of your life and showing your wife. You don't want her to see shoddy workmanship. That's the way it ought to be. Screws secured, we can go ahead and remove this. And most woodworkers are going to tell you to leave it overnight and come back tomorrow and finish it up like the glue set. But I just don't have time for that. When I start something, I want to get it done. So that's why I put the screws in. The glue will set up on its own. We'll just be careful with it. So we've got one complete. Now we'll just do the second one exactly like I showed you, and then we'll cut the sides and start putting it together. So now we're ready to cut our sides. So we're going to take our 1x12 and cut two 36-inch pieces out of it. Alright, so after a 36-incher sides are cut, then with the remaining wood we have on that 2x12 or 1x12 pine, we're going to cut out two 18-inchers for the end caps. We'll take our two spacer bars in here, space them out about 24 inches apart here using your square, and then we'll start laying the sides in. This is where your math is going to come home to roost, or the quality of your cuts. And then we'll place our sides here. So what you're shooting for is when everything is assembled and pressed together, that the bottom of your inside end panel should be flush with the inside bevel there of the side. And of course the sides here all matching up. Reason being is we're going to be putting a very tight screen over here of some mesh, and then we'll have a cap here to put over for cold climates or for winter time. So that needs to work out like that. So if you find that these are a little bit too long, go ahead and trim them down. But they need to seal tight against that bottom mesh. We don't want the bees coming out, getting out. We want them coming in and out of their hole. So now we want to fit all this together really tight. Make sure that all of our corners are all pulled in tight. If you have a strap clamp, it works good for that. If you don't, just simply drive a small nail in right here in the corner of the top bar, and that will hold that, keep that from spreading and slipping out on you. So I've got this pulled tight here to show you all the joints. Make sure that there's no gaps or spacing, anything that's too big or anything big enough for a bee to come out of. And then we'll fit and measure and lay out our end clamp. Alright, with our end cap centered, it should be showing 3/4 inch overhang on each side from the top, we're going to very carefully draw lines on the outside and the inside. On both of them here, both sides. Now we can remove it. So now we got our lines here, and we've got both ends. I've got one stacked on the other, so I don't have to do layout twice. So what I've done here is I've marked here, measured from here, from the bottom at 2, what was it, 2, 6, and 10. Keeping far enough away from the edges not to crack it. And these will pre-drill these all the way through both ends, and our layout would be perfect. And these will be our screws that will hold the box into the sides. And if you want to know, measure across here, make sure you're in the center. This is 3/4 wide, so we're at 3/8 to the center. We'll finish up by countersinking. What a countersink is you can see the small bit that basically just makes a little bit of a groove or a little hole in there that'll fit that will fit the wide part of the screw. So as you run the screw in flush, it doesn't smash and distort the wood. It's just it just looks nicer. So by putting those two together, you know, it just saves time, and we get a better, more precise match. You know, we drilled all the way through, so our layout holes are already here. So we can simply flip this over and then do our countersinks for our screw heads on the other side also. So now with our end plate, with the marks on it, we want to put that around here, just line up our marks. And this is, we're going into the end of only 3/4 inch, so it's really critical that we don't split that out. So make sure you get a drill bit just a little bit smaller than your screw. You're going to want about a 2.5 inch screw for this to pre-drill these holes. And make sure you drill them in straight or you poke out the side. Alright, with our holes pre-drilled, let's go ahead and put some glue on here. Don't worry if you get a little too much on there, we can wipe that off. So now we'll put our screw in. On this delicate wood, it just take a minute. I don't run my screws all the way in with the cordless. We'll set all these by hand. When I'm just below the surface, so when we sand it, we don't sand off the coating that makes it weather resistant. Alright, so we're ready to fix our other side, and just again make sure that you have tight fits all the way around here. And now's the time to sand these insides just a little bit. Just knock those burrs off because you won't be able to get to them after this is glued on. So check it out, pretty cool. Our very own top Bar Hive. What do we have into this so far? 20 bucks, if that. One 10-foot 1x12 pine at Home Depot. A couple of scraps of plywood. There's just not that much to it. There's no excuse not to have bees, especially when if you can take a little initiative and even collect your own swarm, so you don't even have to buy those, which I'm going to attempt to do. I don't know how much success I'll have. I've got feelers out to people that are going to call me in the orchards when the bees start swarming, and I'm hoping to go out there and get me some. So, I mean, here's the box. As you can see, these are the dividers. So there's a couple more things left to do in this video. We're not going to do the legs or the rest of the frames today. We'll do that in part 2, or the top bars. But what we will do is put the holes in and then finish up the bottom. We're going to use a little bit of screen, and we'll make a little bottom board for everything to collect, I guess, for everything that the bees drop. The mites and different things can collect and fall at the bottom, and that board can be removed to clean it out. So what I don't know about bees is a lot. I'm just going off of what I read, and sometimes you just got to jump in and do it. So let's go see if we can't scrounge around some screen and finish this up. So the previous owners were kind enough to leave their SETI satellite dish here for me, and I almost threw it away. I took it to the scrap, and I thought, that might come in useful someday. And sure enough, who would have thought? So here's a perfect screen right here for our bee project. So see if we can't strip some of this off here. So if you're not fortunate enough to have a 40-year-old satellite dish in your yard, any tight screen at a hardware store will suffice. I'm sure they have it at most lumber yards or Home Depots, and I don't know the exact size. I read it online, I don't remember, but I don't think it matters. Just something that won't corrode. Aluminum, stainless, galvanized. So I'm going to use a chalk line here. What seems to be about right, the right width is about 7 inches. So I'm going to snap a line here at 7. Maybe not. So the screen is going to just work ideal. What it came out to about right was about 7 inches wide, and then cut it to length. And what I want to be sure is I'm going to have a board on here for wintertime that I can close this up. And what I'm guessing is going to happen is if it gets really hot, I can open that up and then have good ventilation into the hive, but also preventing predators or whatever things don't belong in the hive from getting in, and this will do that. So I'm going to just bend this down into a kind of a convex shape, making sure that I can put a straight edge across here and I'm not hitting the wire. So just a little bit down there, and then we'll start setting some screws in here. Maybe some stainless staples would work better. I don't have any, but I've got some small galvanized screws, so that's what I'm going to use here. Alright, so I've got these little tiny guys, and they're so small that I probably don't have to worry about splitting the wood. I'm going to hold that down there about 3/16 or so and see if I can't. Yeah, that should work just fine. So it seems that putting a weight on here as you're going is a good method. So that satellite dish grill just worked perfect. I put a whole bunch of those little screws in, and with the convex to the inside, and that is going to be great. So let's drill our holes for the bees to get in and see about figuring out a way to do a bottom cap. So from what I read, 3 holes are best, 3 1-inch holes. So the center here of this is 18 inches, so we'll put 1 in the center, and then 4 inches over one this side, and then 4 inches this side, and 2 inches up from the bottom. Alright, I'm sure the bees won't mind here. Alright, so what I've read is that the 1-inch holes will receive a champagne bottle corks, or they look a little bit bigger than wine bottle corks, but I'm not sure. But some type of cork will fit in there that you can, I guess, manage. I guess maybe you start out with 1, and then if you see that it's becoming congested, then you can open up others. I'm assuming so. Alright, so that's done. Let's see about if we can figure out a way to put a bottom cap on this, and in a way that we can open and close it without too much trouble. So I cut the bottom board to go on here. It turned out to be, I just went edge to edge, and it turned out to be 7 1/4 wide. That was just the right fit, and that will cover that vent up, I'm assuming, for the winter time. And I thought, well, I need to have this that I can easily take it off. I don't want to have to use any tools or anything, and I was looking for some hinges and latches, and I came across these things in just some junk that I collected here. As you can see, it's got the spring here, and then it's got the ball there, and they simply mount on here and snap on, and that will hold it there by tension in place. And I think that's really good. It's perfect for this. As far as I know, I mean, I may change it in the future when I learn more about bees, but I think that's a good way. So I'll mount this other one here, kind of show you how to put it on, and maybe it would be a good option for you also. So a few years ago, my grandfather gave me a whole truckload of just all types of knickknacks and things, and this here, these little latches are part of it. He had a friend that he'd worked with for years. He was kind of a handyman, had a nice shop, had passed away, and I don't know if he didn't have any children or any family that wanted his things. Anyway, my granddad ended up with them. You know, a guy was in his late 70s, you know, a lifetime's worth of just stuff, you know, just the stuff you collect in a shop. He gave it to me, and I don't think a week goes by that I don't dig in that stuff and for a nut or bolt or washer or just some little thing to get a job done. And it's I think about, it's strange using all this hardware and all this thing from a guy that is dead and that I never really knew. I never knew at all. And it's funny, it's a reminder to me that it's so easy to get caught up and think about the most important thing in our life is acquiring things, possessions, and then, you know, for what? What's the point of it? You know, here this guy, I'm not saying that's what his life was about, but here this guy, everything that he spent his whole life collecting and gathering and buying goes to someone that he never knew. And it doesn't really benefit him anything at all. It's funny, I think about that. It just is a reminder to me that what matters is how we affect people, you know, friendships and family and relationships, and that's what's truly important. That's the true legacy, not about gathering or collecting things. A little philosophy on the Wranglerstar channel here. All right, so let's get that lid. What do I do with it? All right, let's see if it fits. Yeah, that's perfect. That works out really good. So I may not have mentioned the reason for having that convex grating in here is when we put these dividers in, let's say we want to keep the bees in this particular small area here, when the lid goes down, it will push that down and kind of compress that grating down there and form a tight seal that the bees won't be able to get out of. You want to keep them coming and going through their holes and not out other ways, or I guess other critters getting in there, and that will make a nice tight seal. So that's the reason for it. So it looks great. This is all I'm going to do tonight, and then the next video we'll perhaps do the legs and all the bars, the crossbars, and if I'm feeling really motivated, maybe even a top, a little gable top. So stay tuned for that. So that's it. We'll see you in the next video.